baby. Coming up on Chicago Bears Now, could Lincoln Riley be the head coach of the Chicago Bears next season if it doesn't work out with Matt Eberflus? One national sports commentator brought up this possibility. Let's dive into it. My name is Harrison Graham. Colin Cowherd went on the herd the other day and said, guess what? Don't be shocked if you hear Lincoln Riley to Chicago rumors. Let's get into what he said and then react here. Here's what Cowherd said a couple of days ago. He said, I'll just throw this out there. You look at their schedule. If they lose 3 of their next 4 games, you will hear Lincoln Riley rumors. I promise you. I don't think Lincoln Riley wants it. He's not going to take that job. It's just not a good fit for him. But this is an improvisational quarterback, talking about Caleb Williams. And those type of quarterbacks need strong coaching to get structure, and I'm not sure it's in the building at Halas Hall. And I think it's an interesting point made by Colin, who, look, I listen to Cowherd a decent amount. Sometimes he says stuff. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Other times I'm like, it makes sense. Look, I'll say this. These next 5 weeks are pivotal because this is the soft part of the schedule. You're catching the Colts, who are beat up right now with DeForest Buckner. Their offense is a mess with Anthony Richardson. You're catching the Rams at home next week. Their whole team is hurt except for Matthew Stafford. The Panthers are the worst team in football. Jags are off to an 0-2 start to the season. You play them at a neutral site in London. Then you got the bye week. At worst, you got to go 2-2 here. Ideally, you're winning 3 of 4, if not all 4. I'll say this, to Colin's point. If they lose 3 of 4 with this upcoming slate, the noise, the heat is going to ramp up on Matt Eberflus. Like, it just absolutely is. That Chicago media, it's year 3. I'm going to be talking about it. This is the most pivotal stretch of his coaching career. You just have to take advantage of the schedule ahead. And whether that's fair or not, you've got a rookie quarterback you're trying to get going. You got a first-time play caller. That's the reality of the situation. This is the NFL. The pressure is on Matt Eberflus to deliver some W's. And considering the next month of games, 2-2, anything less than 2-2 is not going to be acceptable. So I don't know if it would be Lincoln Riley's the answer. We'll dive into some pros and cons of what he could bring to the table. But there will be discussions on who the Bears' 2025 head coach could be if the Bears go into the bye week at 2-4. How hot is Matt Eberflus' seat right now? Scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not at all, 10 being scorching. I actually don't think it's very hot. I'd give it like a 3. I think the national media thinks it's a lot hotter than it actually is. But if you lose to the Colts, I think it ramps up a point or 2. I think you get up to a 4 or 5. So I think the reality is it's about a 3, but keep an eye on this next month. It could change really, really quickly as things do in the NFL. So let's talk about this scenario. Lincoln Riley, could he be the Bears head coach? Cowherd said he wouldn't expect it to happen, but that the rumors would start to circulate, and I kind of agree. I do think that rumor mill would start. And would it make sense for the Bears? Would it make sense from their perspective if they moved on from Matt Eberflus? Well, I got 2 pros, 2 cons. We'll start with the pros. Number 1, the obvious one. Well, the relationship with Caleb Williams. He's known him for about 5 years, recruited him to Oklahoma, coached him at Oklahoma for a season, essentially brought him to USC. I know he didn't literally bring him, but he took the USC job. Williams enters the portal, goes out there. It's obvious what happened. He coached him for 3 years, led him to a Heisman Trophy. Caleb Williams trusts Lincoln Riley. So I do think if Matt Eberflus got fired, he would at least be on the list of interest. And by the way, Lincoln Riley lost a lot of his, star on that shine this past year because things kind of fell apart. But he's kind of bouncing back pretty nicely, right? He's got USC rolling early this year. He's got Miller Moss cooking. And, maybe Cliff Kingsbury was a bigger problem. The defense was a mess. He hires a defense coordinator. All of a sudden, it looks like a real football team again. So I do think the relationship with Caleb would play a big role here for him being on the short list of candidates if Matt Eberflus were to move on. All right, we'll get to the next pro and then a couple of cons here in just a second. But first, I do got to show some love to our sponsor. That is Prize Picks. Have you ever played daily fantasy sports? You should, because Let's be honest. When you do your season-long fantasy draft, sometimes by week 3, week 4, say you have Christian McCaffrey this year, you are scrambling and your season could be over before it even starts. Well, the beauty of daily fantasy and especially Prize Picks, new lineups every single day, baby. You can change it up. It's more fun that way anyway, and you can play different sports. You can cross over sports on your picks. 2 to 6 player entries. You choose more, choose less based on the stat projections available, and if you hit, you make money. Caleb Williams' deal continues through September, so for the next 2 weeks, more or less than half a passing yard. Obviously, he's going to hit the more, take the more. And then I got less on Anthony Richardson passing yards this week. He's really been struggling. So $5 to win 15 there. And if you use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS and play for $5, you are going to get a $50 bonus straight into your account, whether you win or lose that $5 entry. Awesome deal right now from Prize Picks. So what do? Sign up today, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. Place your first entry for $5. You will get that instant $50. It's awesome. Choose more, choose less. It's Prize Picks. Go check out Daily Fantasy with Prize Picks today. Okay, the other pro. Well, he's an offensive coach. I've made it pretty clear. In most scenarios, if you move on from Flus, I want an offensive coach to pair with Caleb Williams, and he's the play caller. He would come in, be the head coach, be the play caller. I think that's the ideal setup in today's NFL. Why is that, Harrison? Well, if you have a defensive-minded head coach and an awesome offense, a team is going to poach your offensive coordinator, then you have to reset. If your head coach is an offensive guy and he calls the plays and he's good, well, you've got that continuity for a while. That is the ideal setup in today's NFL, so that is ideally what you would do. That is ideally what would happen. Now, would I be upset if this team hired Mike Vrabel? No. I don't really want Bill Belichick, if I'm being honest. I guess it would be probably an upgrade, but again, other than Vrabel, I want an offensive play caller if they move on from Matt Eberflus as my head coach, and that's something Lincoln Riley does. All right, 2 cons. And this first one's a pretty big one for me. He's never coached in the NFL, and I don't mean as like a play caller, as a head coach, anything. He has never been on an NFL coaching staff. And there's really no track record of a guy who's never coached in the NFL of being a high-level head coach. If you guys have any names that come to mind that fit that bill, let me know. He hasn't even been like a quality offensive assistant or one of these analysts. Nothing. He's never been on an NFL staff. He was on Texas Tech's coaching staff to start his career, and then he went to Oklahoma, and then East Carolina, back to Oklahoma, and now at USC. That's it. He's never been on an NFL coaching staff, and it's just a different dynamic. You're dealing with professional paid athletes. I get NIL now. There's some crossover now at the college level, but it's still a different ballgame. So that would give me some pause in that regard. I think the coordinator hires would be pretty damn important if Lincoln Riley, became the head coach. Subscribe to the channel. Authentic Bears takes, the latest news, my analysis and reaction going on around this football team and the NFL. So hit that subscribe button. We got you covered here on a daily basis. And then lastly, does his offense translate? And I don't think his offense is exactly the same as the guy I'm about to mention. But Cliff Kingsbury, who was on that staff last year when things kind of fell apart, you wonder, was it more his fault than Lincoln's? Who knows? Cliff's offenses have been very hit and miss in the NFL. There's been some success, but defenses kind of figure him out, and he struggles to counter-adjust. Like when he was in Arizona, the first half of the year, he'd have awesome records, and then November, December, January, his teams would plummet. We'll see how it goes in Washington. Okay start so far. Now, I'll say this about Lincoln Riley. I think his offenses, the good ones, are more physical and more willing to run the football. He kind of got away from that last year, but if you remember, that USC offensive line was a joke, and they kind of had no choice but to just let Caleb be a hero. But I do think it's fair to question, would his offense translate? Would he make the necessary tweaks and adjustments for the NFL level? Would he incorporate some under-center plays into his offense? He doesn't run hardly any under-center at the collegiate level. That doesn't really work in the NFL. You've got to have some under-center action. So that is a fair question, as is the fact he's never been an NFL coach. So those are 2 areas that would concern me. But I do agree with Cowherd that if this goes south, if the Bears limp into the bye week, you're going to hear Lincoln Riley's name thrown out there. Why? Because Caleb Williams is the quarterback here. That is just how these things work. So it'll be very, very interesting. And hopefully this is all a moot point. Hopefully the Bears ball out the next 4 weeks. It's right there in front of them, a pretty soft schedule. But it's Chicago. You never know how things are going to play out. If the Bears fire Matt Eberflus, would you want Lincoln Riley? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. Let me know down in the comments below. My take, I'd be interested. He'd be on my list. He wouldn't be my top guy. I don't know at this exact moment who my top guy would be. It would be one of these current offensive guys who have called plays, ideally for multiple years with high levels of success. That guy becomes my head coach, calls my plays, and hires a defensive coordinator, and you build the staff from there. That is what I would do. Again, if you're moving on from Eberflus, I'm not even saying I would do that yet, but obviously things need to improve here. We'll see how the next few weeks go. All right. Hit me up on Instagram at HGramNFL if you got any more questions, thoughts, takes on the Chicago Bears. I am an open book. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, bear down.